Hey, we want to go ahead and say thank you so much for taking the time to check out our YouTube video. If you've not done so already, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel, We Like Comic Books. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit the like button as well. Okay, on with the story. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the conclusion of the Wonder Woman Dark God story arc. And we're all at the proverbial point where we get to see who lives, who dies, and all that stuff. But seriously, the Wonder Woman Dark God story arc has been so much fun to read and so much fun to just share with you. And we want you to know that the entire team here is looking forward to bringing you this video. So if you can recall, in the last panel of Wonder Woman number 49, and also which is pretty much how we ended our last video, it ended with a surprise, because it appears that Jason, who happens to be Wonder Woman's brother, has come under the corruptive influence of the Dark Gods, and he's ready to battle Wonder Woman in order to appease them. And ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if you want to get caught up on our videos within the Dark Gods, the Wonder Woman Dark Gods story arc, you're welcome to go ahead and click any of the links in the description below to get caught up on what's happened so far. So let's go ahead and fast forward to issue 50, or really to where we are today. And the book starts off actually about 1 month after the Dark Gods events have taken place. And it's pretty interesting because we got some reflection and just some general conversation here between Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman. Because if you can remember through a lot of our previous issues, Steve Trevor has been more like in the I would say the managerial role of orchestrating war, because he's very much been so behind the scenes, just kind of orchestrating where people and even superhero forces are being deployed. Well, at this point in our story, Steve is kind of reflecting on that and just comes to the conclusion that he wants to get back out into the field again and do some action. And we've got several panels here that are talking about that. But at the same time, Wonder Woman is doing some reflecting as well. She's actually gone through a lot in this past month with not only the Dark Gods, but also some things that have happened as they relate to her brother, Jason. So as Wonder Woman reflects back, we go right into the heart of the action. I mean, the events have begun to really approach a climactic point. I mean, we've got Wonder Woman versus the Dark Gods versus her brother. And as this story is unfolding, I love what's being done here with the different panels that we're showing you here, because it's just a reminder, and I have been saying this through a number of the videos, but this influence of the Dark Gods is not just impacting everyday regular people with no powers, but it's impacting the superpowered community as well, which I think is just a really fascinating aspect to bring in when you think about what the Dark Gods are actually doing to the planet Earth. And again, we have more conflict as Wonder Woman is attempting to battle the Dark Gods and snap her brother out of their influence. And by all appearances, it does not look good. I mean, Jason appears to be fully possessed by the Dark Gods, and it appears that he's starting to become more familiar with the armor and how to use it in other creative ways. So in case you've missed it in one of our earlier videos, and again we got the links below, Jason's armor allows him to use the power of all of the Greek god pantheon, but one power per god at a time, so really one ability at a time. So here's an example of him expanding his use of those abilities. He's able to use the power of Hercules to smack Wonder Woman far, 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 far away. But you gotta love Wonder Woman. She is such a determined hero who just doesn't know how to stop. You can tell that she's down, but she's not out for the count. And even though she's shaky, on shaky legs, she is doing her best to not go full, Wonder Woman beast mode on Jason. I mean, she still feels that she's got another notch that she can take it in her battle against her brother. She's basically holding back. I mean, I've got to tell you, Wonder Woman's abilities are just truly off the chart. But at any rate, as Wonder Woman is trying to plead with her brother Jason, things take a 180-degree turn, because we learn that Jason is not under the influence of the Dark Gods at all. And I think this is probably a good thing for Jason, because as I was just saying, Wonder Woman is pleading with Jason because she does not want to have to go take this to another level to really put her brother down. Now, whether or not she would be able to do it with him having the armor, I don't know, But I can tell you this, that's a fight that Jason would not want to deal with Wonder Woman at full capacity, or at least full abilities coming at him. But we learned that Jason has done some pretty cool things here, because as I said earlier, he's starting to use his armor in creative ways. So what he does is, number one, he was able to effectively call on Athena's wisdom at the right time, ahead of time, to get some ideas of how to basically deal with these dark gods. And number two, as a part of his plans, he starts pulling on some of the more subtle abilities of the Greek pantheon. So for example, he's using the powers of the Greek god Dolos. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. If you all let me know in the description below which is the right pronunciation, I would love it. But they call on this Greek god's abilities because this is the Greek god of lies. And it is through that ability that Jason has been able to make the dark gods believe that he is under their sway. I mean, this is just really cool. You know, when you think about the level of gods, you've got these dark gods, you've got the Greek pantheon, and it's now coming down to abilities, and it's almost like a game of chess. I mean, who would have thought that the powers of the Greek gods would be powerful enough to fool the dark gods? You know, just didn't know, but this is just giving us some more character, some more color, some more things that we can add into this story. So at any rate, he lets Wonder Woman know that in order for this plan to work, it's basically going to involve him having to beat his sister up some more. So as we get back to the story, it appears that Jason has literally knocked his dear sister Diana into unconsciousness. And I've got to tell you, the dark gods certainly look pleased because they feel like Wonder Woman is the only credible threat to them on the planet Earth. Now the next thing that Jason does is convince King Best into absorbing Wonder Woman, just like he did to the Justice League in an earlier issue. Now King Best does not want to do this because you remember, the dark gods, you know, they're a little worried about Wonder Woman. But like anything in life, sometimes it is not what you say, but it's how you say it. And the reason that I say that will become clear to you in a few moments. So we next transition into the mind space of King Best, with not only Wonder Woman, but Jason as well, which is kind of curious, because you remember, Jason just asked King Best to absorb Wonder Woman. So what's he doing there? Okay, again, we'll get to that in a moment. But at any rate, whether he's there or not, the dark gods, they don't care. I mean, they're just looking for a snack. And they're really excited about snacking on the essence of Wonder Woman. But then something happens that they're not expecting. Wonder Woman wakes up. And Wonder Woman comments that the dark gods, you know, appear to behave as a hive mind. You know, a group that's always in contact with each other. And when I read that, it got me to thinking, I guess that's how all the dark gods ended up in Paraguay when Jason was battling Savage Fire in issue number 49, as seen in our last video. But what happens next is that Wonder Woman does what she does best, and that's go into full action mode. And King Best is really beside himself right now because he's got no clue as to how any of this happened. I mean, how in the world did he get from having the upper hand to Wonder Woman waging war inside of his collective mindscape? And it's at this point that I get really impressed with what Jason has done. Because, you know, he's mixed and matched the powers of the Greek pantheon like someone putting on an exquisite meal. And he reveals to King Best just how messed up things have gotten for King Best within a matter of moments. He lets him know that he's been able to convince the dark gods that he was under their control by using the powers of Dolos, the god of lies, ability to lie. He also lets them know that he's been able to add some persuasion into his request. Remember, I said earlier, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. Well, there was a little something extra in that request, and that's why King Best was a little more compelled to bring Wonder Woman into his mindscape. And this was done due to the powers of the goddess Pitho, who's the goddess of persuasion. And again, I apologize if I'm butchering these names. And the reason that Wonder Woman appeared to be knocked out is not because of the fight, but due to the god of sleep, Morpheus, which actually allowed Wonder Woman to go into an extremely deep sleep. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that Jason, you know, was brought along for the proverbial ride, although he only asked King Best to bring in Wonder Woman. Well, the reason that he was able to come along is due to the abilities of the goddess Hestia. She's the goddess of family. And due to the link that he had with his sister, he was able to use her abilities to make sure that he was able to go into the mind space of King Best. Now, Jason is either a really good communicator, or he must have gotten the abilities of, I don't know, the Greek goddess salesmanship. Because what happens over the next few scenes is pretty impressive. Because you see, Jason and Wonder Woman realize that this mind space or hive mind is where the dark gods are at their weakest. King Best knows this as well, and he simply tells Jason that, hey look, I can remove you and Wonder Woman from here. But what Jason points out to him is that Wonder Woman will never give up in her battle against them, whether it be in the physical world or in that mind space. Because you see, what Jason is ultimately after is a way to get the dark gods to leave, and he's about to lay something out in front of them to consider. And this is where Jason's salesmanship just really shines. Because you see, despite the plan that Jason lays out, I feel that the dark gods have a clear advantage here. I mean, they basically have the earth in the palm of their hands. They've already demonstrated not only how powerful they are, but how corruptive and how widespread their influence is. I mean, they basically have a new home here that they can twist and distort to their own dark desires and purposes. So I've got to ask, if you almost have it all, why would you even consider something else? I say it's because of the word almost. You see, there's one thing that the dark gods have wanted above anything else, and I believe that Jason realizes this through the wisdom of Athena. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the desire to get back to their home in the dark multiverse. So Jason gives King Best the proverbial offer that you can't refuse. He lets King Best know that if the dark gods actually absorb him, that with the powers of the Greek pantheon, which is basically stored in his armor, that should be enough to get them back to the dark multiverse. And this offer really intrigues King Best, and this is again why I say Jason is one heck of a salesman. I mean, remind me never to get a used car from this guy, because I believe it's pretty impressive to have someone even consider an offer without a 100% guarantee, especially considering what I consider to be the position of strength that the dark gods currently have. But King Best is a practitioner, of fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you, because he wants to know, how does King Best know that Jason is not going to double cross him again? And Jason assures him that if the dark gods cease their influence of Earth and return to Justice League, then that show of good faith on their part will solidify his deal with them. Now, Wonder Woman is overhearing all this while she's kicking some major dark god butt, and you can imagine that she is not pleased with this. But King Best has decided to consider this offer with the dark gods and immediately expels Wonder Woman and Jason from that collective mind space. And Wonder Woman is furious because she not only doesn't want to lose her brother who she's just found, she doesn't want him to experience the living death that she saw the Justice League having while they were captured by King Best. But Jason lets her know that he feels that this is the only way. He lets Wonder Woman know that they'll almost certainly find a way to defeat the dark gods given enough time. But he lets her know, but the price may be too high. Because what sort of Earth may be left after the victory is finally won? And it appears that Wonder Woman doesn't really have too much time to deliberate on the question that Jason just asked, because King Best lets them know that the dark gods will take Jason up on his offer. Wonder Woman does not want this to happen, but before she knows it, Jason is gone, and the Justice League have returned. They have no memory of what's happened to them when they were absorbed by King Best, and Wonder Woman lets them know that the price of their freedom came at the expense of her brother Jason's. And just like that, King Best does a little bit of trash talking, saying that the Earth needs to hope that the dark gods never come back. And Wonder Woman always fights to the end, and there's no exception here. She's still attempting to stop the dark gods from leaving, but the dark gods leave and attempt to make their trip back home to the multiverse. So our story concludes with the writer bringing us back to the present, where you see Wonder Woman basically wrapping up this final part of the story with Trevor. And it's taken her some time to deal with the situation. but she does feel like there's a chance that she will see Jason again, and she reflects on the fact that Jason got his wish in the end to be a hero. And after that, she departs from Trevor to let him go on his mission. And Wonder Woman reflects a bit on everything that she's lost. But as you see here, she has a faith that one day the loved ones that she's been cut off from and misses will be seen again. And by keeping this in her heart, this allows her to focus on tomorrow. So ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much wraps up the Wonder Woman Dark God story arc. And we hope that you enjoyed watching and listening to these videos as much as we enjoy creating them. Because we here at We Like Comic Books thought that this story arc had a fitting end. The story not only brought about the conclusion of the story arc, but it also concludes the writing duties of writer James Robinson. James Robinson's been writing in and for the Wonder Woman Rebirth story arc starting at issue 31 and of course concluding right here at issue 50. So this also marks the end of Jason along with the Dark Gods, and both of these are characters created by James Robinson, so we believe it's kind of fitting that they all kind of quote unquote ride off into the sunset together. But at the same time, he did a pretty cool thing. He leaves the door open for another writer or writers to use them in the future. So I have to ask you, what do you all think? Do you think that we will see any of these characters again in future comics? Well, we've got a few theories here, and we're going to specifically speak about Jason. So the thought here is that, if we see Jason again, our thoughts are that it's either going to be A, without his armor, or B, with his armor, but with his abilities as it relates to that armor greatly reduced. And this makes sense to us because when you think about what ended up happening at the conclusion of issue 50, the Dark Gods are basically going to be siphoning energy from that armor in order to get home. So if we do see him again with the armor, it would make sense that his armor, if it did still function, wouldn't function the same way. So we're thinking that, either he would be able to use the armor, but maybe at just once a day, or maybe it will be restricted to calling on those abilities just a handful of times a day. And when we think about where Jason is at the conclusion of the story, Jason has gone from someone who couldn't even remember that he had the ability to call on the goddess of wisdom for help, to someone who is able to wield that armor and combine the abilities of various gods in different ways. With that level of mastery that he's beginning to show, imagine bringing him back at that level in the DC comic book universe today. I mean, you think about it, he'd be able to pull on the power of Greek gods like Hephaestus. That's the Greek god of metalworking. So he would not only be able to create any weapon that he would need for whatever situation he's in, just as an added perk, if we think about the Dark Knight's metal storyline, we learn that all the weapons that the gods made were created from the 8th metal from the Dark Multiverse. I mean, that's the stuff of gods. That's what the book itself said. So we're talking some very powerful weapons that he would be able to bring to bear, not only for himself, but conceivably anyone who's in his group. So no matter what situation, he'd always have the weapon to deal with it. Or if you think about something else, you got the Greek god of wealth named Plutus. If he needed money, he'd never have any money concerns, because all he would simply need to do is call on that Greek god and all of his financial concerns would be addressed. And of course, like we said earlier, he has the ability to tap into the wisdom of Athena. So I think you see where we're going with this. So that's why we believe that if he does come back again, there would need to be some modifications with the way that character appeared in the DC comic book universe. But again, these are just our thoughts. So again, what do you all think? Please comment below and let us know. And once again, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch our videos. And if you've not done so already, please consider to subscribe. Please like this video as well. And as we've been asking you throughout this video, leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Have a great day, everyone.